Welcome to a special series of podcast discussions for the BC Construction Association with leaders from 5 sectors of the industry so pivotal to our economy and our well-being. I'm Kirk Lapointe, your host for this series of conversations on the life stories of these leaders and their insights about their industry. Our guest in this segment is Terry Brown. He was an integral member of Greyback Construction Ltd for 25 years as a senior project manager on major commercial, industrial, institutional, and multi-residential projects, who in 2009 retired from Greyback to launch STBR Consulting, his own Kelowna construction, consulting, and project management company that has grown into a significant firm in British Columbia in construction. Here's our conversation. So Terry, good to have you with us. I really want to start with an understanding from you about how family played an influence. What was that as an ingredient in your early successes?
It certainly was important. Both of my parents were raised during the Depression on the prairies, so that work ethic was embedded in us at a very early age. I have 6 brothers. There were 7 boys in the family, so it was a handful. We all learned fairly quickly that we all had to chip in to help to get things done, cooperation, collaboration. Sometimes with your brothers, it's not always easy, but we understood that was one of the keys to having successful outcomes around the home.
It sounds like that also instilled teamwork.
Yes, it did. We worked together on a lot of projects around the house. We did build a new home collectively with Dad and the brothers. Dad was a journeyman carpenter and he owned his own construction company. So we worked with him throughout our years at home. In fact, I remember as a 5-year-old when he was at work, I would go out and clean his shop. As I recall, I think I got about a nickel an hour for sweeping up the sawdust and putting the tools away and things like that.
Oh, but a nickel back then was big money, though.
It was big money. A lot of candies were only a penny, so then you did pretty well with a nickel. And then as we got into high school, a little older, we would work with our father on the sites after school. Some days take half a day off, weekends. And so we learned again kind of that collaboration, cooperation, forward-looking, problem-solving. And one of the things I always remember with my dad is that at the end of the day, before he got in his vehicle and drove away, he would stop and he would look at the project and just kind of sit for a minute and kind of, I could see a job satisfaction, what they had achieved that day. He would kind of take it in. And it was a real, awareness for me of how important that job satisfaction was to him. And that was something else that I carried forward from our family.
It sounds to me like he inspired you to appreciate the fruits of your labor.
Yes, he did. Working with our hands, seeing the outcomes, different challenges, different rewards. I was quite into construction at an early age, but my dad only had a grade 6 education on the prairies. His father said, and I'm simplifying this a bit, but basically at grade 6 you can read and write, no more school, I need you on the farm. And so he had an emphasis that we as kids all had to get a university education. At that time, that was kind of the panacea for a good future. And so even though in my instance and some of my brothers, we were quite interested in construction, we did all go through university, went on our own paths, and a number of us found our way back into the industry because of those early learnings that we had picked up both around the family and working with Dad on his various projects.
Well, it sounds as if you couldn't let them go. They had been hardwired into you.
They had been hardwired in. And I think, the other thing I learned from those years working with him was that it was a good income. Hard work and quality work in construction did provide a good income. And with a family of 9, Dad needed a fairly steady and good income. And so that was another variable that I had picked up, was not only was it satisfying, but that it had a good income. And so that was some of the reasons. I did dabble in a few other careers along the way before I came back to construction, but it did draw me back. Basically, the job satisfaction was probably a bigger draw, but also that constant changing, that constant learning, that constant developing new skills on the job site, because no two projects are the same.
When you consult and when you've hired over your career as well, are those the attributes you're looking for in an employee? What you felt you were providing an organization?
Yeah, I mean, we understood at our organization that we had to motivate our employees. We had to give them a good wage and a benefit package to retain them. We wanted to offer them career opportunities, advancement within our organization. And we were a young company growing, so we had a lot of positions available within our organization, both on the site and in the office. And so those were opportunities for our employees to advance if they had the desire. That was something that we reinforced throughout our hiring processes, was that not only do you get a good income, but your job should be satisfying, rewarding. There were a lot of our tradespeople that wanted to mentor apprentices. And we understood the value of apprenticing. We understood that we had to not only look after the current generation, but we had to make sure that there was the next generation ready to come into our organization.
Do you feel that we've lost a bit of that now? I don't want to sound like we're going to be nostalgic here, yearning for the good old days, but there are some of those things that were about the good old days. Do you feel a little bit of that has been lost?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of companies that have that attitude. What you need is the candidate that is wanting to take that career path. In other words, wants to get into construction, wants to learn, wants to move forward. So we've probably lost a bit of that, but I think there's still just about the majority of the companies are looking for apprentices. They will spend time and energy helping them develop. It's just that there's probably fewer candidates that see construction as a career path as opposed to IT, some of the other careers that are out there right now, even though it's very, very satisfying and it pays good wages.
Yeah, those two things, of course, are key ingredients for anyone's happiness or contentedness at work. But how do you sell this now? Because there's very clearly a labor shortage in the trades. There's so much demand for them and such a smaller supply than to fit the bill. How do you make people understand that it's a satisfying job? You can obviously make them understand pretty quickly that it pays you well, but how do you make them understand that job satisfaction, Terry?
Yeah, there's a couple of factors there. I think in my day, there were always shops in schools. There was welding, there was metalwork, there was carpentry, there was electrical shops. Most of those are gone now. Mm-hmm. The other thing that our company, Greyback out of Penticton, did was we went into schools. We collaborated with our local school district and the teachers and the shop teachers, and we would say we're coming into the school. Any of you parents and children that think this might be the career for you, come out on a Tuesday afternoon. We'd fill the gym. And we would tell them, the advantages, the opportunities they had. We try and tweak their interest early, grade 9, grade 10, grade 11. We would even indenture apprentices at a young age. That was, again, with the support of the school system. They would allow credits for kids that were apprenticing. And we had kids that weren't old enough to drive that were coming on job sites, shadowing, mentoring, and that really supported their better understanding of the industry and that it was a good career path. And there were those that didn't want to go to university or were looking for something else, exactly as you're saying, job satisfaction, working with their hands, decent income. And if we were able to get in front of them face to face, one-on-one, and answer the parents' questions, it was the parents as much when the kids are in grade 9, 10, 11 that are trying to guide the future of their kids as the children are. And we would answer a lot of the questions. What about working out of town? What about layoffs? What about future advancement? And we would emphasize that as an organization that needed that next wave, that next generation of workers.
It sounds like you're saying that we have to get back to that somehow if we're going to find the way to adequately supply a workforce into the demands that are obviously facing us and will face us. Yeah. I mean, I think to get involved in the educational system at an early stage, to point out the opportunities. We had apprentices 21 years old that were in their third or fourth year, sometimes a journey person. They'd say, I'm driving a 1965 Firebird. I own my own home. These were real people that had been in their school 5 or 6 years ahead of time. And it really resonated with with those youth and with the parents. And I think we need to try and re-engage in the school system at an earlier age, just to point out the opportunities that are available in our industry. Some of the things you speak about here, of course, are tremendously traditional in the way that we've encouraged the workforce. They brought it along generation by generation. But I also know that you're one of these people that talks about getting outside of your circle of comfort a lot and trying these new things. Tell me a little bit about that and your own sense of not risk-taking per se, but getting into areas that you're not fully familiar with in order to advance yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we were a small company to start with. We had half a dozen employees. I started in the field actually as a laborer and moved into foreman roles and then into the office. So I wasn't exposed, wasn't interacting as much with the vast majority of our industry. And our associations were always looking for individuals to come in. I got involved in our local association fairly early in the 80s because I really was passionate about some of their initiatives, training, networking, talking to owners and governments, and trying to get better contracts, et cetera, et cetera. So I got involved at the local level, first at the Penticton level, and then our regional level, Southern Interior Construction Association. And that took me out of my comfort zone because I wasn't used to sitting in front of a table of 25 and sometimes speaking, expressing, your opinions. You tend to be a little quiet and listen for a while. And then I was asked to move to the next level, which was a provincial level. And again, you're in the same environment. You're in a new environment. You're with the leaders of the industry across the province. And I'm from a little town with a smaller company. And it took a while to get a level of comfort. And I ultimately did. You're learning, you're listening. These are your peers at the end of the day. They're compassionate, they're understanding, they help you along. They basically mentor you. And then I was asked to move up to the next level, the national level. And of course, that's even more apprehensive, a lot more out of my comfort zone. The board there, when I was there, was 90. The board of directors was 90 people. And you had the key people of every industry across Canada. And these companies were not only national, they were international, all the big companies. And it was kind of apprehensive. I used to speak that I was from the mom and pop environment. I wasn't from an international corporation. But over time, you gain confidence. Again, these are your peers, even though they're more educated, probably a lot more experienced, a lot brighter than perhaps I was, but they were very tolerant. It just helped me, move along, and that really helped my self-confidence.
I think you've spoken now to this, but let's pursue it just a bit more, because I really want to understand what you felt that getting out of your comfort zone did in terms of helping you discover more of who you were.
Yeah, a very good point. I mean, you do need to step beyond that, even though it's uncomfortable, step beyond your own comfort zone. And what I found as the outcome, there was a tremendous opportunity to learn. I learned a great deal. I developed both personally and professionally. And ultimately, that development personally and professionally gave me additional self-confidence. But one of the side effects was that with this new knowledge and confidence, it helped our earnings. It helped my personal earnings. It helped our corporate earnings, because you had a broader background. You understood some specifics, whether it was mold remediation or insurance nuances or contract specifics. That broader knowledge really helped you in both your personal and professional life.
It sounds like it hasn't stopped, right? You're still learning about every day or so on something.
It is a lifelong journey in learning. One of the things in construction is that no two projects are exactly the same. You're always doing something a bit different. You're working with new equipment, new tools, new products, new projects. And so you're learning. And so you get into that lifetime continuous learning mode, and it doesn't stop when you get my age, because you're still interested in all the activities that are going around you. So you continue to learn, and that keeps your mind and your body active as you get into your more senior years, like where I'm heading.
Yeah. One of the things I think we all share in terms of learning was coping with the pandemic, and I think it threw all kinds of curveballs at all sorts of people in order to survive it and navigate it. Tell me a little bit about your own journey during this period, and what it is, again, you learned not only about the world, but what you learned about yourself in it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It was a tremendous change for our industry. I mean, our company had always tried to recognize this work-life balance, that our workers needed to have some time alone. I'll never forget a comment at one of our early Christmas parties. One of the wives came up to me and she said, "I allow my husband to work for you because you have a safe company." And that stuck with me. It was a family decision, right? You had to think of it as a family unit, not just that worker that was there 8 hours. And what the pandemic did was reinforce that very strong link between mental health and physical health, and the strong need between life balance and work balance. And if an individual, for whatever reason, needed some time off, you had to be compassionate. You had to understand that they were working with other factors, whether it's an illness in the family, one of their children, perhaps they needed time off. And we would certainly allow that. And of course, on the job site, it really did change the way we constructed, the way we did business. We did things like stairs up, stairs down, so that we could separate the workers. Wherever we could, we would try and keep the workers apart, a minimum distance. We would work in different areas, different shifts. We set up these wash stations, hot and warm water wash stations on every level of the project, and tried to keep a very safe environment, because obviously at that time, and especially the early days, nobody was really sure of what was causing the major spread and what the outcomes were.
It was a mysterious period there for a number of months.
Yeah.
So I am curious, though. This is such, at times, a hyper-masculine sector of our economy.
Yeah.
Where did that piece come from in you, do you think, that could bring forward compassion and could understand that the mental health conditions that your organization provide were important, and that the people who you employed needed this nurturing without going soft, was still doing the job, but doing it in this new way? Where did that come from in you?
I think it came from that family background. My mother and her personality, once we were in school, she went back to nursing and she worked in the emergency ward, and she would tell us about some of the situations. She was very compassionate. That's why she ended up there. And, we learned that compassion was necessary throughout, and we understood it because we needed it ourselves. And so obviously all our employees would need exactly the same thing. So it was innate in us, and I think in the owners of the company, they were very sensitive to that. And with regard to the women in the trades, we always supported that. We actually had a number of initiatives where we would bring women into the industry and mentor them, give them a lot of support. We would put more mentors than normal with them. And we did have a number that continued through and got their journey person certification, but it was a male-dominated industry, and it takes time for that mind shift to change. And so, there are more women in the trades. It's certainly a big push of all the associations. We need workers, and certainly they're very highly qualified and easy to learn, easy to work with. So it's a good resource from the industry's perspective to get more females into the industry.
If you were retiring this afternoon, and people were going to celebrate you, how would you like to be remembered?
I would say that my career, that I was fair, equitable throughout my career, and that I treated everybody equally, that I didn't have, just because I was in a different position, I didn't necessarily bring that to the forefront. And the other thing is that I did give back. I would like to be remembered that I gave back to the industry. Industry was very good to me and my family over the years, and I'd like to think that I was able to pay some of that forward.
Was that always there, or did that have to develop in you, that sense of giving?
I think it developed with time. Part of it was through the volunteer work with the associations. You understand that in our careers, that there's the opportunity to give back, there's the opportunity to mentor, that you can assist the next wave, the next generation. And part of it, I think, was from family, and part of it was learned experience from being involved in a lot of the volunteer work.
Do you recall an obstacle at any point in the career where you had to use the skills we've just talked about in order to overcome it?
Yeah, one of our projects where I was significantly involved was the construction of this floating bridge here in Kelowna. And there's only a handful of floating bridges in the world. And so it was really challenging. And one of the issues was to basically build a square boat out of concrete and make sure it didn't leak. And that was a real challenge, right? Because it wouldn't look good if it didn't float. And so one of the things we had to do, and we had a workforce of 150 employees on that job site, we had to instill in them the value of the work that they were doing and the importance of what they were providing. And how do you communicate that to 150 workers? So I went to our local print shop and I asked how big they could print, and we printed out our drawings in 6x8 sheets, tacked them up to the walls of all the shacks. And on a Friday afternoon after lunch, I went through and pointed out how critical each stage was. The guys tying the rebar, the guys laying the rebar, the guy placing the concrete, the guys finishing the concrete. And I tried to communicate through to them how invaluable it was, no matter what position you were. Even the laborer that was cleaning the latents off the joints, he had to do a good job, because that was where the concrete needed to bond, and that was where we couldn't have a leak. So we spent a couple of hours, and it really helped them understand how critical their role was, whatever part of the puzzle was.
A lot of managers could have easily just, directed people, get to this, get to this, get to this. Do you remember what made you feel like you had to do almost an educational experience here for people so that they bought in, so they feel it would work?
Yeah, we had 10 foremen, and they each worked on their own types of projects, and they didn't necessarily understand the interrelationship between these separate groups. And I learned that because I always walked the site. I always talked to the people, see what their issues were. And I could see that they didn't fully understand. They knew how to tie rebar, but they didn't understand that it was critical to have the exact same measurement from either side, because blah, blah, blah. And so that was when I said, well, I need to explain to everybody, from the laborer to the superintendent, this cross-jurisdictional, cross-responsibility tie-in to deliver a successful program. We had 150 guys, and when that pontoon was pushed out into the lake, it had to float, it had to behave, it had to respond as per the drawings, right? And so that was another challenge we had. We had labor issues, and at one time, we brought in some foreign workers, temporary foreign workers. 11 Jamaicans came in. And I had to convince our crew to accept these foreign workers that didn't have anywhere near the skill or the experience of our guys, but that they would help support the successful delivery and a timely delivery of our project. So again, on our Friday afternoon chat, I gathered our workers, and I said, I made arrangements for 11 tradespeople from their level of Jamaica to come to this job site. I said, they are equivalent to a first-year apprentice in our system. And what they're looking for you individuals is to learn and to mentor. Some of them have never seen a concrete pump. Some of them have never seen a Powell screed, right, from where they come from. They're looking to learn, they're looking to gain knowledge, and you are going to be the guys that were doing it. So I had to shift the mindset from some apprehension to a welcoming, to where they would look to actually pass on their skills to these people that hadn't had the upbringing and the exposure that our workers have experienced in their careers.
Well, those are two great anecdotes that I think sound very emblematic of the kind of leadership you've had and how you want to be remembered in the business. I want to thank you for your time today. It's been a great conversation, Terry. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks so much, Terry. I'm Kirk LaPointe. Thanks a lot for watching.